Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that's all around us, but we barely ever notice: the crucial tech problems our modern institutions face, every single day. And we're going to do it by looking at one company, Eesan Pro Tech, that has basically built its entire business around fixing these exact problems.
So let's start with a really simple question. Think about it. When you walk into a school, or a clinic, or even your office, you see the obvious stuff, right? The desks, the people. But what about all the tech that's humming away just under the surface? I'm talking about the security cameras, the network cables, those little access panels on the wall. Who puts all that stuff in? And how do these places, which are so essential to our lives, even begin to keep up with the constant need for more security, better internet, and just, being more efficient?
Okay, this phrase right here, where problem meets solutions. This is going to be our guide for today's explainer. It's really the heart of a business that doesn't thrive by selling you the latest flashy gadget. Nope, it thrives by connecting real, everyday problems with super practical, targeted solutions.
All right, so before we can really get the solution, we've got to understand the problem, right? Let's take a look at these tech challenges that are, honestly, hiding in plain sight in all the places we depend on.
Okay, just think about a school for a second. Physical security, that's not just some line item on a budget. It's about keeping students safe. And a reliable network, it's not just for sending emails, it's for actual learning in the classroom. Or take an office. Managing who gets in and out protects really sensitive data. And for all of them, the budget is always tight. You see, these aren't just nice-to-haves. If any one of these things fails, the whole place can just grind to a halt.
So when you have a set of problems that's this clear and this common, it basically creates a perfect opportunity. A specialist can step in to solve them. And that brings us to the solution: a niche technology provider.
And here's that specialist we're talking about, Eesan Pro Tech. Now, they're a company based in Bangalore, and their entire mission boils down to three really important words: secure, reliable, and cost-effective. And that's the absolute key to their whole model. They're not trying to be everything to everybody. They just focus on these core, foundational needs for schools, offices, and other businesses.
Okay, so we've got the problem and we've met the specialist. But what's actually in their toolkit, How do they actually solve these challenges on the ground? Let's break it down.
First up, and probably the most obvious one, is security and surveillance. This is all about creating that visual record. Basically, a watchful eye over a physical space using good old CCTV.
But listen, this is way more than just sticking a camera on a wall. It's a whole system. We're talking about IP cameras that you can actually check on your phone, smart recording systems that are all integrated, and even customized packages. Because let's be real, the security needs of a little preschool are totally different from a big corporate office.
But just seeing what's happening, that's only half the battle. The next piece of this puzzle is actively managing who gets into a space and when they can do it. And that's where access control and attendance systems come into play. So how do they do that? With biometrics. Think fingerprint scanners or those little RFID cards you tap. And this isn't just for clocking in and out for work. When you hook these readers up to the door locks, you create a seriously powerful security tool. All of a sudden, you've got a digital log of who went where and at what time. Now, for an office with sensitive files or a hostel with hundreds of people, that is a total game changer. So right here, you have the two pillars of their whole security setup. CCTV is what we'd call passive. It lets you see what happened after the fact. Biometrics, on the other hand, are active. They physically enforce the rules about who's allowed where. So one is for recording, and the other is for restricting. You really need both for a security system that's actually comprehensive.
But of course, none of these smart cameras or access panels can just work on their own in a vacuum. They all have to rely on a solid and pretty much invisible foundation: the core IT and network infrastructure.
This stuff is the true digital backbone of a building. It all starts with structured LAN cabling. You can think of these as the arteries carrying all the data. It also includes setting up the server racks and routers. That's the brains of the whole network. But it's also about making the tech you already have work better, like swapping in an SSD to make a clunky old PC feel brand new. They even handle the end-of-life stuff, helping companies get some value back from their old IT scrap. It's really a complete end-to-end service.
All right, so we've seen the toolkit. We get the what and the how. So the big question left is, who?
Who are the clients that actually need this very specific set of solutions?
And this really shows you their strategy, which is all about focus. They're not trying to serve every single person in Bangalore, no. They've zeroed in on very specific sectors: educational institutions, healthcare facilities, offices, and even real estate. And what do all of these have in common? Well, they all share those exact same foundational tech problems we talked about right at the start.
And when you drill down into it, their focus gets even sharper. It's not just education. It's preschools and schools and colleges. It's not just offices. They're working directly with the architects and builders who have to plan for all this cabling and security right from day one. This is what a real niche strategy looks like in the wild.
But, just having the right tools is only half the story. In a business like this, the how, the way you actually do the work, is just as important as what you do. And that brings us to their promise of quality.
Their whole value promise really boils down to a simple 4-step process. See, it's not just about selling you a box of hardware. It starts with expert guidance. It's not just about getting the job done. It's about doing it on time and leaving the place clean. We're talking no messy wires left behind. And crucially, it doesn't just stop when the installation is finished. They stick around to provide support afterward. So the goal isn't a quick sale. It's about building a long-term relationship based on trust.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What's the main point? Well, the success of a company like Eesan Pro Tech really points to a powerful business model. You can absolutely thrive not by trying to be everything to everyone, but by finding a very specific set of problems and just becoming the absolute best at solving them with a targeted, high-quality solution.
And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. That tagline, where problem meets solutions, it's not just some clever marketing. It's their entire business model, summed up in 4 simple words.
And that leaves us with one last, bigger question to think about. I mean, we are surrounded by talk of smart homes, smart offices, smart cities, but for any of that to even exist, somebody has to be there to install the cables, the cameras, and the servers that make up its foundation. So as our world just keeps accelerating towards being smart, who are the specialists out there building its essential, and often invisible, infrastructure? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.